Hello again. Welcome back to year 5 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is week 11, day 1. So we're continuing through the book of Genesis. Last time we saw Joseph reveal himself to his brothers, assuring them that they should not be afraid or overwhelmed by guilt, because even though they had intended evil against him long before, God had used it for good, bringing Joseph into Egypt and elevating him so that through his wisdom all Egypt and many others, including the entire household of Jacob, might be preserved through the famine. He sent his brothers back to bring Jacob and his entire household back to Egypt. And Jacob, who had been almost as good as dead for all the years since he lost Joseph, effectively came back to life, and he joyfully prepared to leave Canaan and go to Egypt. This time we will see what follows. So this is chapter 46. So Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their cattle and their goods which they had gained in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, all his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. Now these are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons. And then it gives all the names we're just going to sum up. Reuben with 4 sons, Simeon with 6 sons, Levi with 3 sons, Judah with 3 surviving sons and 2 grandsons, Issachar with 4 sons, Zebulun with 3 sons, and Jacob's daughter Dinah, who had no children. Gad with 7 sons, Asher with 4 sons and 1 daughter and 2 grandsons, Joseph and his 2 sons, although they were already there, Benjamin with 10 sons, Dan with 1 son, and Naphtali with 4 sons. And then it says, all the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own offspring, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob that came into Egypt were 70. Jacob sent Judah before him to Joseph to appear before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph made ready his chariot, and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. And he presented himself to him, and fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen your face, and know that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, My brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me, and the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, What is your occupation? You shall say, Your servants have been keepers of cattle from our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. So Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, My father and my brothers, with their flocks and herds and all that they possess, have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen. And from among his brothers he took 5 men, and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, as our fathers were. They said to Pharaoh, We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. And now, we pray you, let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my cattle. Then Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourning. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Then Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their dependents. All right, so a few things to notice here. It's worth paying attention that when Joseph comes in to meet with Pharaoh, or rather when Jacob comes in to meet with Pharaoh, Jacob blesses Pharaoh. Pharaoh doesn't bless Jacob. So there is a profound respect that is given to a profound respect that is given to Jacob, even by Pharaoh, and that's impressive. That's notable. But also we should pay attention to the. It's not clear, I should say, whether Jacob, whether the Pharaoh gives that respect to Jacob, whether he recognizes Jacob as elevated and lofty and high and worthy of respect, or whether Jacob simply carries that dignity with himself and gives that blessing to Pharaoh. It's kind of an interesting situation there. The whole question about being shepherds, this seems like it connects to the relatively recent history for what I think would be the new kingdom of Egypt, because during the intermediate period, the Hyksos, who were from Asia, from the region of Canaan, somewhere in that area, they had dominion in Egypt and had only recently been driven out. So there's a little bit of that going on as well. So they're kind of being upfront about that and saying, yes, we know you don't want anything to do with people from our part of the world, but we'll take care of the flocks and herds, and we'll be your faithful servants. And they're given the good pasture land in Goshen, which would be in the delta. But most importantly, we need to pay attention to what happens when Jacob leaves Canaan, because Beersheba is in the far south of the Promised Land, and it's a known landmark even into the time of the kingdom of Saul and David and Solomon and after. So it's a big deal for Jacob to leave the Promised Land, to leave the land that he has inhabited once he came back from Mesopotamia, that his father lived in all his life, and that Abraham kept trying to leave and kept being pushed back to by the Lord. That living in the land, not with possession of it, not as owners or overlords, but as sojourners, as guests, as visitors, this is a profoundly important part of the identity of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. To leave the land is a big deal, and it matters that then he makes sacrifice to God, and God comes to him and assures him that this is the right thing to do, that he will be brought back again, and that moreover he will be comforted. He will see his son Joseph, and when he dies, it will be Joseph's hand that closes his eyes and buries him. So we see now that Jacob has kind of come back to himself. He's moved finally past his grief for Rachel's death, his grief at Joseph's loss because Joseph is being restored to him, and now as he leaves the Promised Land, that promise of God to him, that covenant is renewed, and that assurance is given that he will be brought back again. This is a big deal. This matters. God has not forsaken Jacob. God is still appearing to Jacob. God doesn't appear to Joseph, interestingly. He gives him insight in his dreams, but Jacob is still seeing God and encountering him and receiving that assurance. So the covenant stands, and the promise is firm and is now being passed on to the next generation, to the sons of Jacob. Anyway, we'll wrap up there. God bless you all. We'll see you shortly for day 2.